Do you remember when the world truly believed Tupac's story had ended that night in Las Vegas? Decades later, a newly surfaced clip showing his body at a funeral has sent shockwaves through hip-hop culture, challenging everything we thought we knew. What the camera captured was not a moment of closure. It was a secret hidden in plain sight, a fragment of history that could finally reveal what really happened that night. Just 14 seconds, grainy, dimly lit, barely clear, but enough to shake an entire generation of fans. In 2025, nearly 30 years after Tupac Shakur's death, the internet erupted when the footage appeared online. It showed what appeared to be Tupac's body at a private viewing, the lighting, the angles, the few figures in frame all hinting at something previously thought impossible. A secret ceremony, completely unrecorded in official documents, contradicting the story everyone had been told about his cremation and memorials. Fans called it the most chilling 14 seconds in hip-hop history. Others called it proof of something long suspected. To understand why this clip was so explosive, you need to go back to that night when the legend was silenced, and to the few people who witnessed what happened inside the hospital long before ashes and myth shaped the story. Tupac Amaru Shakur, poet, revolutionary, movie star, was shot on September 7, 1996, in a Las Vegas drive-by, following an altercation inside the MGM Grand. He had gone there with Suge Knight for the Mike Tyson fight, with a simple plan: celebrate, make appearances, fly back to Los Angeles. But the night spiraled out of control in minutes. At a red light on Flamingo and Koval, a white Cadillac pulled up beside their BMW. 13 shots rang out. 4 struck Tupac, 2 in the chest, 1 in the thigh, 1 in the arm. Suge was grazed. By 11:20 p.m., Tupac was rushed to University Medical Center in critical condition. He would never leave alive.
So we jumped in a cab. She called Yasmin and the assistant Molly, and Yasmin didn't know what was going on because it went to voicemail of Pac's phone.
But that's not how Gobi M. Rahimi remembers it. Gobi wasn't just a filmmaker. He was Tupac's creative partner, the man who directed his music videos and built his visual legacy, the one who helped shape the story and image of a rising icon. He was there through the chaos of California Love, Hit 'Em Up, and 2 of America's Most Wanted. He was there the night the bullets flew. Most importantly, he was among the first of Tupac's inner circle to arrive at the hospital. Yasmin made a few calls, Gobi recalls. She told us, "Go to University Hospital and wait there until we get there." So Tracy and I rushed to the ER. Inside the waiting room, we found David Kenner, Suge Knight's parents, Reggie Wright, a few other death row affiliates, and Carter Jones on the payphone, sobbing. When Gobi walked through those doors, there were no press cameras, no detectives crowding the hallways, just fear and silence. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Suge's parents, Afeni Shakur's aides, and Carter Jones, Tupac's fiancée, waiting, tense, desperate, as they all tried to hear any word about the man they loved. Then, a nurse appeared.
His right lung was shot out, so we had to remove his right lung. And for the next 12 hours, he's going to go through a series of reparative operations.
The nurse's clinical calm couldn't mask the grim reality. Tupac's body was severely damaged. Surgeons worked relentlessly, removing his right lung, repairing his chest, and adjusting his ventilator constantly as his vitals fluctuated. Yet even amid the chaos, hope persisted during those early nights. Gobi and the Outlaws, Tupac's closest circle, maintained constant rotations, some standing guard at the hospital doors themselves, haunted by the fear that someone might try to finish what the shooters had started.
We did 6 nights, and the 6 nights I was there were death threats, undercover FBI agents, a police force that did not want to cooperate.
What Gobi recalls was pure chaos. Unmarked cars lined the streets outside, hospital security was overwhelmed, and unfamiliar faces kept appearing in hallways, asking questions nobody wanted to answer. By the 5th night, the Fruit of Islam, the paramilitary branch of the Nation of Islam, had stepped in to manage security. That alone shows how tense and dangerous the situation had become. Then, on September 13, 1996, at precisely 4:03 p.m., Tupac Shakur passed away. Official records state that the following day, September 14th, he was cremated at the request of his mother, Afeni Shakur. There was no public viewing, no casket, no gravesite, only a private gathering on a Malibu beach, where bonfires burned, drums played, and ashes were scattered into the Pacific Ocean. Afeni wanted to ensure that her son's body would not be desecrated or turned into a spectacle. She sought only peace. According to family members and sources close to death row records, the cremation was immediate, supervised, and strictly private. Yet, there has always been a lingering question. The official timeline never fully adds up. No mortuary has ever confirmed receiving Tupac's body prior to the reported cremation. The crematory worker allegedly responsible for the process reportedly quit and disappeared shortly afterward. And now, decades later, a leaked clip seems to show an open casket viewing, with the body displaying Tupac's recognizable facial features and tattoos, surrounded by flickering candles and a small group of mourners. If authentic, this footage suggests the public has only been told part of the story. To grasp why this is so controversial, It's crucial to understand how closely the Shakur family guarded Tupac's final arrangements. Official accounts and eyewitness statements outline the sequence. September 13th, death declared at UMC. September 14th, private cremation in Los Angeles. September 15th to 16th, private memorial on a secluded Malibu beach. September 22nd, public ceremony in Harlem, organized by the Nation of Islam. There is no mention anywhere of a viewing, a funeral home, or cameras. Yet this newly surfaced clip, believed to have been filmed in a small Los Angeles mortuary, seems to contradict that record. Even the candles match the style used at Angela's funeral home, where Tupac's body was reportedly transported briefly before the cremation. Angela's funeral home has consistently denied that any footage was ever taken inside its premises. Still, rumors persisted for decades. In the late 1990s, whispers circulated that certain members of Death Row Records had privately seen Tupac's body before it was cremated. Some did so out of grief, others out of suspicion. A few even claimed the face they saw didn't resemble him. These old rumors now collide with visual evidence, creating a narrative fans never imagined. For years, the public believed Tupac's story ended at the Malibu Beach Memorial, where friends scattered his ashes, smoked cigars, and played his music beneath the open sky. Eyewitness accounts describe an intimate gathering of roughly 30 to 50 people, including Afeni Shakur, the Outlaws, Jada Pinkett Smith, and Snoop Dogg. Some recall drums and sage smoke. Others remember laughter between tears. That night gave rise to one of hip-hop's most infamous legends, the Ashes story. Members of the Outlaws, including Young Noble and E.D. Amin, later admitted to mixing Tupac's ashes with marijuana and smoking it, framing the act as a final tribute inspired by his lyrics, "Cremated, Last Wishes, and Smoke My Ashes." The Outlaws have repeatedly confirmed the act, most recently in interviews from 2024, describing it as a ritual of grief and remembrance. Yet Afeni Shakur's family has always disputed it, labeling it unauthorized and disrespectful. If the newly leaked footage is authentic, it raises a troubling question. How could Tupac's ashes have been smoked if the body had not yet been cremated? The video is timestamped September 14, 1996, the very day of the official cremation. Analysts studying the clip note that the lighting and furnishings match mortuary styles common in Los Angeles in the early 90s. A silk cloth drapes over the lower half of the body. The visible tattoos, particularly the Machiavelli and Outlaws insignias, align with autopsy photos released years later. But there's an inconsistency. The chest, where the medical examiner documented a 3-inch surgical incision, shows no mark in the footage. Instead, the skin appears smooth and unblemished, likely covered with makeup. Either the footage was staged, or Tupac's body had been cosmetically prepared for viewing, which would indicate that a mortuary was involved and that a formal viewing did indeed take place. The final 24 hours of Tupac's life, September 7, 1996, unfolded under the neon glare of Las Vegas. A restless city shimmered in desert heat, buzzing with anticipation. Mike Tyson was back in the ring. Death Row Records was present. Tupac Shakur was alive, energetic, and laughing. By midnight, however, he would be bleeding in the passenger seat of a BMW, gasping for air as chaos consumed the strip. Every minute of that night has been analyzed repeatedly, yet even now, decades later, the timeline still contains gaps. The day began a celebration. Tupac woke late in his Luxor hotel suite, sharing the space with his fiancée, Kidada Jones, daughter of Quincy Jones and half-sister to Rashida Jones. The suite, according to later interviews, smelled of sandalwood and cigarette smoke, his ritual preparation before a major public appearance. Around 2 p.m., he called Suge Knight. They had planned to meet at the MGM Grand by 7 p.m. Pac wanted to watch Tyson defeat Bruce Seldon, with Tyson entering the ring to the sound of Can't See Me from All Eyes on Me. By this point, tension with Death Row Records had reached a breaking point. Filmmaker and insider Gobi Rahim recalls that Tupac had fired his Death Row legal team just 2 weeks earlier, including attorney David Kenner and security chief Reggie Wright Jr. In fact, Rahim notes, Pac dismissed Wright either the same day or the following day, signaling he was ready to operate independently. By the time Tupac arrived in Las Vegas, he was essentially without official protection. The bodyguards assigned by Death Row were loyal to Suge Knight, not Tupac. In the weeks leading up to September 7th, Knight had been pressing Pac to maintain loyalty, continue recording, and prioritize allegiance over autonomy. By 8:30 p.m., Tupac and Suge entered the MGM Grand. Tyson's fight lasted just 2 minutes. Cameras flashed, the crowd roared, and in the chaos near the lobby elevators, one of Suge's men, Trayvon Trey D. Lane, spotted Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a known Crip from Compton. Anderson had stolen a medallion from a Death Row affiliate weeks earlier, a token representing the Blood Crip divide. That theft had drawn a line in the sand, one Tupac could not ignore. He confronted Anderson, asking, "You from the South Side?" before striking him in the face. Seconds later, Suge and others joined in, stomping Anderson as casino surveillance silently recorded. The altercation lasted no more than 13 seconds, yet it sealed Tupac's fate. Security intervened, separating the two groups. No arrests were made. No citations issued. Anderson left humiliated, vowing revenge. Tupac and Suge walked away smiling, believing the matter had been settled. They returned to the Luxor Hotel. Tupac swapped his black fight vest for a white tank top, gold chains catching the light as he moved. Kid Ada urged him to stay in, but Suge was hosting an after-party at Club 662, Death Row's own venue on East Flamingo. "I'll just swing by, say what's up," he reassured her. Yet even then, an unease hung in the air. Gobi Rahim described it as tension, palpable and electric. Tupac, those closest to him say, sensed the pull of danger but felt compelled to go, bound by loyalty and obligation. Around 10:30 p.m., the convoy left the Luxor in a black BMW 750 Illinois sedan. Suge behind the wheel, Tupac riding shotgun. Behind them, several vehicles carried Outlaws members and Death Row associates. They aimed for Club 662, but the strip was alive, streets crowded, traffic crawling. At approximately 11:05 p.m., a white Cadillac full of women pulled up alongside the BMW, laughing and shouting. Tupac smiled, flirted, his ring glinting, a moment suspended in time, eerie in hindsight. A few blocks later, they reached the intersection of Flamingo Road and Koval Lane, where everything unraveled. Witnesses described the scene as abrupt, almost methodical. A second white Cadillac rolled up on the right side of the BMW. A window dropped. A Glock .40 erupted, firing 13 to 15 rounds into the vehicle. 4 bullets struck Tupac, 2 in the chest, 1 in the arm, 1 in the thigh. Suge was grazed by shrapnel, his head blooded. The BMW veered violently, striking a curb on Harmon Avenue. Somehow, Suge regained control, executing a U-turn before police could intercept. By 11:20 p.m., paramedics arrived, racing through the Vegas streets toward University Medical Center, light slicing the night. Tupac was unconscious, bleeding heavily, his pulse fading. Surgeons immediately moved him to trauma surgery, removing bullets, repairing arteries, and placing him on a ventilator. Over the next 6 days, he endured 3 major operations, including removal of his right lung, as recorded in hospital and Clark County coroner summaries. He was placed into a medically induced coma, but outside the hospital walls, a different battle raged. Allegiances clashed in the waiting room, Suge Knight's team on one side, Tupac's family and friends on the other. Gobi Rahim recalls arriving within an hour of the shooting. Tension thickened, every minute a negotiation of loyalty and fear. Afeni Shakur arrived the next morning, her presence a shift from panic to resolute defiance. She had witnessed too much death in the movement and was determined her son would not become another statistic. Yet hope was fragile. Doctors reported temporary stabilization followed by severe complications, blood loss, collapsed lungs, and infection. On the 6th day, the Fruit of Islam arrived, suit-clad, armed, silently taking control of the hospital hallways as if bracing for conflict. Hours later, while Gobi drove through the California desert toward a video set, a radio DJ's voice cut through the silence. Breaking news, Tupac Shakur had died in Las Vegas at 4:03 p.m. He pulled over. The desert stretched, quiet and empty. Official records listed respiratory failure and cardiac arrest due to multiple gunshot wounds. But contradictions soon emerged. Gobi recalled a nurse telling him that same morning Tupac had improved by 13%, not fully conscious, but on the mend. What happened in the hours between that report and the declared time of death? Some insiders contend his removal from life support may have been influenced by fear of further violence. Afeni Shakur reportedly instructed doctors to avoid prolonging his suffering, yet others speak of heated disputes among family, medical staff, and death row affiliates. Suge Knight later told Vibe that Tupac had been talking, even joking, shortly before his death, though medical records indicate he never regained full consciousness. Which version is accurate remains unknown. No independent witness beyond hospital staff or death row associates could confirm what truly transpired in the ICU. And then there's the unexplained window of missing time between 4:03 p.m. and 7 p.m., a gap that only deepens the mystery. Police records indicate that the official announcement of Tupac's death didn't come until roughly 2 hours later, long after his body had been removed from the trauma unit. A Las Vegas Sun archive details how hospital staff were explicitly instructed not to speak to media or release any information until the family and label representatives gave permission. That 4 to 7 p.m. window has fueled speculation that the now leaked funeral footage was captured during that time. The cover-up, some argue, began here. Tupac's passing didn't just end a life, it created a gap in history. For nearly 3 decades, that gap has widened with every rumor, contradictory statement, and new revelation that reshaped the accepted narrative. Unlike lyrics, fan theories, or whispered sightings, this evidence comes from a camera. The purported footage, verified to have been recorded on analog tape consistent with 1990 Sony camcorders, forces a complete re-evaluation of September 13th to 14th, 1996, because it could only have been filmed inside a tightly controlled environment. No fans, no reporters, no chaos, only silence, candlelight flickering across a body that shouldn't have been there. If authentic, the clip suggests one of two possibilities. Either the official story of Tupac's cremation was incorrect, or someone illegally documented his body against his mother's explicit wishes. Within hours of his death at 4:03 p.m., the hospital went into lockdown. University Medical Center logs show that access to the trauma ward was restricted to family, 2 death row representatives, and attending physicians. Yet transfer records, released years later via Las Vegas Review-Journal public records request, list an unverified individual, F. James Media. No journalist has claimed this identity. Digital restoration experts examining the leaked footage in 2025 noted a faint reflection in a glass cabinet. Zoomed and stabilized, it revealed a man in scrubs holding a shoulder-mounted camera, equipment consistent with professional documentary work from the mid-1990s. The implications are chilling. Someone inside the hospital filmed Tupac's body. But for what purpose? Gobi Rahim's shift spanned 6 nights, meaning he was present nearly every day Tupac survived after the shooting. His testimony indicates that during that period, unknown individuals entered the hospital posing as staff or investigators, and by the end, the Fruit of Islam was controlling security rather than law enforcement. On the morning of September 13th, Gobi left Las Vegas reassured by a nurse that Tupac had improved 13%. Hours later, driving to Los Angeles, he heard it on the radio: Tupac was dead. That 13%, whatever it represented, became one of the most haunting details in the legend. If Tupac had shown signs of recovery in the morning, how did he die by the afternoon? Afeni Shakur's response, as she later recounted in a 1997 Ebony interview, was immediate. Every negative was to be destroyed, every tape confiscated. "My son's image is not a commodity," she said. Decades passed before the story resurfaced. In mid-2025, a former Las Vegas Metro Police technician anonymously delivered a high-8 tape to an independent archivist in Compton. The technician claimed the footage had been stored in an evidence box mistakenly labeled Vehicle Photos BMW 750 Illinois. The archivist verified the tape's age through oxide decay testing and digitized the contents. Within weeks, fragments began circulating online. Authorities have not confirmed or denied the chain of custody, but the tape aligns with missing evidence logs from the 1996 homicide file, discovered during a 2023 audit. Analysts note that the source file, allegedly from a 1990s high-8 camcorder, contains metadata consistent with analog-to-digital transfers performed around 2003 to 2005, suggesting it may have circulated privately among collectors well before surfacing on the internet. Forensic archivists analyzing the footage have noted 2 frames that clearly reflect the Death Row Records logo on a mourner's jacket, indicating the clip was recorded within hours of Tupac's confirmed time of death. If accurate, this implies one of 2 possibilities. Either Death Row insiders secretly filmed Tupac's body before cremation, perhaps for documentation or some unknown purpose, or the cremation wasn't immediate, and a temporary preparation allowed a private viewing for Afeni and a handful of trusted friends. Neither explanation matches the official narrative. Those close to Tupac believed they were protecting him, ensuring his dignity even in death. Yet this 14-second clip reveals a darker reality. Someone violated that trust. That is why fans, historians, and investigators remain captivated. This single fragment could append everything known about Tupac's passing, his funeral, and the secrecy surrounding those final hours. Even nearly 3 decades later, the mystery refuses to die with him. The appearance of this grainy, flickering footage has reignited a debate that never truly ended. What began as a question of authenticity has evolved into a confrontation with how legends are constructed and truths buried beneath myth. Whether the tape shows Tupac's real body or an elaborate recreation, its existence exposes fractures in the official record. Somewhere between the hospital, the mortuary, and the crematory, decisions were made. Choices to preserve, to document, or perhaps to manipulate what the world would remember. For Afeni Shakur, these moments were sacred. She wanted peace, privacy, and dignity for her son. But for others present that night, the pull of history may have proved too compelling. If the footage is genuine, it reveals that Tupac's death was not as neatly contained as records suggest. There was a period of uncertainty, movement, transfers, and whispered deliberations. The same Las Vegas where he rapped "Life Goes On" may have witnessed one last breach of that promise. The camera captured a fallen man whose image represented resistance itself. Even now, as analysts and journalists debate pixel ratios and timestamp discrepancies, the underlying story remains human: loyalty and betrayal, an artist surrounded by people who loved him but couldn't shield him, and a mother striving to protect her son's spirit from an industry addicted to spectacle. This footage doesn't merely reopen a case, it reopens a wound. And perhaps that is its purpose. Tupac's legacy has always thrived at the intersection of truth and rumor, mortality and myth. The camera that captured those final moments may have intended to preserve evidence, but it instead created a mirror reflecting the extremes people will go to witness what was never meant to be seen. In the end, the film offers no closure, only gravity. It reminds us that Tupac was more than the conspiracies, more than the 7-day theories, more than the hidden codes fans obsess over. He was a son, a poet, and a man defined by defiance. Even in death, the defiance persists in every blurred frame, in every unanswered question, in every whisper insisting he is still out there, laughing at a world that cannot stop talking about him. Perhaps that is exactly how Tupac wanted it. Not silence, but debate. Not closure, but perpetual motion. For those who witnessed that night, Gobi Rahim, Afeni Shakur, and millions of fans replaying his words, the truth does not end with the video. It lives in the echo of his voice, warning, taunting, prophesying. Expect me like you expect Jesus to return. I'm coming. In that sense, he already has.